What is up, everybody? Back with another top 10 here today. And with this one, I'm going to be talking about my 10 favorite thrash metal bands from Germany who aren't in the Teutonic 4. So I'm going to dive kind of deep here. Of course, the Teutonic 4 is really good. Sodom, Kreator, Tankard, and Destruction. Love all those bands, but Germany has a ton of really great bands. A lot of them kind of flew under the radar in the 80s and early 90s, and even today, a lot of these bands are still going. But going to give my 10 favorites and then some honorable mentions at the end as usual. Here we go. Starting off my list, number 10 is going to be the band Pyroconda. So these guys were originally together from 1987 to 92. They broke up for a long time after that, just got back together in 2019. So in that original run, they only released 2 albums, so that might be holding them back a bit, not that much material, but both the albums are really good. First one came out in 1990 called Two Sides of a Coin, and then the album Thorns in 1992. So their style is kind of like mid-pace thrash, really good production. Nice riffs. It's not like super fast and aggressive, so if you don't want super extreme thrash, this band's probably for you. I mean, they're more of like the style of Heathen, I would compare them to. The band with Lee Altus from Exodus, really good stuff, and the vocals for this band, Pyroconda, are clean as well, just like Heathen, but good stuff. These 2 albums are very solid. Go check them out. Pyroconda, my number 10. Next up at number 9, I'm going to go with the band Protector. So these guys formed back in 1986, and they are a lot more extreme than the previous band I just talked about. Pretty much kind of borderline death metal a lot of the time, just really heavy, aggressive, brutal thrash, pretty harsh vocals. A guy named Martin Missy was doing vocals on their first 2 albums, and they brought in a guy named Ollie Weeble for the next 2. But that debut album, Golem from 1988, super awesome. I've compared it to like Beneath the Remains, Arise, Era Sepultura, just really heavy, aggressive stuff. And then the Mad in 89. Each of those first 2 are great. And then they brought in Ollie, as I said, on vocals, who, same style voice, just kind of guttural, aggressive, thrash voice that you're used to hearing a lot of the time. But those 2 albums with him are really good, The Heritage and A Shedding of Skin. And then they broke up for a while, a bit after that, and then got back together in 2011, have released 3 albums since then. Martin Missy did return to the band. He's the only classic guy they got now, but a lot of good stuff with this band. If you want some really aggressive, harsh, fast, brutal thrash, Protector is for you, so go check them out. They are my number 9. Coming in at number 8, I'm going to go with the band Deathrow. So these guys formed in 1984 originally and were called Samhain at first. Went by that name for the first 2 years, then switched to Deathrow for their debut album, Riders of Doom. Depending on where it was released, it was also called Satan's Gift. So same album, those 2 are just different names, but at the beginning they were kind of a bit faster, more aggressive and raw, and then eventually they're still heavy and fast, but the musicianship got really good on like Deception Ignored and the last album, which was called Life Beyond 92. But Deception Ignored from 89 is just incredible, amazing riffs. The guitar playing is fantastic. They broke up in 94, still aren't back together. Maybe they will eventually, but 4 albums, all really good. If you want, you know, the more raw, aggressive stuff, go for their like first 2 albums, and then a bit more technical and just better musicianship on the most recent 2 albums. But good band overall. Had pretty much the same lineup other than one guitarist change in like 88. But good stuff. Deathrow, number 8. Next up at number 7, I'm going to go with the band Vendetta. So these guys formed in 1984, were together originally until 1990, put 2 albums out in that span. Both are fantastic. 1987's Go and Live, Stay and Die, and 1988, the album was called Brain Damage. Really good stuff. And then they broke up for about 12 years in 1990, got back together in 2002, have put out 3 albums since then, all of which are good, heavy thrash. But those first 2 albums are what get them pretty high up on this list, because just amazing riffs, amazing solos, good vocals, but the debut for sure is my favorite. Go and Live, Stay and Die. That's just a really cool name for an album as well. Awesome band, so go check them out. Vendetta, number 7. Coming in at number 6 is the band Living Death. So these guys were originally together from 81 to 91, put out a lot of killer stuff in that span. 5 full-length studio albums, most of them are really good, but the 87 album, Protected from Reality, is absolutely incredible. I did have it, if any of you guys remember, on my top 50 thrash albums of all time. That's how much I like it. Just love the guy's voice on here, Thorsten Bergman. It's kind of that really aggressive, raspy sound. It's really unique. I think it fits the music really well. The freaking guitar playing is incredible. The drumming is great as well. And really everything from that album up through the 91 album, which is called Killing in Action. And they did get a new singer for that one who has the same kind of style voice, but do like Thorsten the best. And they are currently, you know, the status is unknown for the band. They've reformed in like 08 and nobody knows if they're together right now. But those 5 albums from the 80s and then early 90s are really good. Great killer classic thrash here. Living Death, number 6. Next up at number 5 is the band Accuger. So these guys formed back in 1986, and they do actually have one of the biggest bodies of work of any of these bands on this list. Released 12 full-length studio albums so far. First one came out in 1987 called The Conviction, and then just last year they put out a self-titled album. That one actually came out on Metal Blade Records, so having some success right now they are, which is really cool. And looking at these albums, a lot of great stuff, but really, I'd say from like Who Dominates Who through Repent in 1992 is my favorite little run they went on. 3 album stretch there. But, you know, like Who Dominates Who and Double Talk are both great. Late 80s, early 90s, just classic aggressive thrash. And then in 92 on the album Repent, which I do like a lot. They went a little bit more like groove metal type stuff, slowed it down a bit, but still really heavy and pretty aggressive. Amazing riffs. The vocals got a bit more harsh. Kind of remind me a bit of like Max Cavalera at that point onward. But yeah, awesome band. Accuser, my number 5. Coming in at number 4 is the band Grinder / Capricorn. I am counting it as the same band because it basically is. They just went by the name Grinder on the first 3 albums, then switched to Capricorn for their last 2. But they changed the name for whatever reason. I think like one guy left the band and then it was pretty much the same band, but they changed the name. But yeah, formed in 1984, and then they kept their name as Grinder until about 92 when they switched. But the first 3 albums released under the Grinder name are fantastic. Dawn for the Living in 88, Dead End in 1989, and the album Nothing is Sacred from 91. Incredible stuff, great musicianship, amazing riffs, great solos, pretty aggressive, but not super extreme and harsh. So if you don't want that, like super extreme thrash, check these guys out. For a while, I couldn't remember who the freaking singer reminded me of, because he reminded me of somebody, but it's the guy from Sacred Reich. So kind of similar vocals to Sacred Reich. Overall, kind of similar feel to them, but I do think Grinder is a bit better. And then when they switched their name to Capricorn, you know, they mellowed the music slightly, but still pretty thrashy. Some things I saw said it was like kind of power metal-y, but it's not really, I don't think. But the self-titled album from 93 and then Inferno from 95, both really good as well. So can't really go wrong with anything from this band. Grinder, Capricorn here at number 4 for me. Coming in at number 3 is the band Mekong Delta. So great band, classic progressive thrash, formed in 1985, have released 12 full lengths over that span. Only one constant member from the beginning though, the bass player Ralph Hubbard. Great musician, good songwriter, does some classical guitar as well. They did have Jorg Michael doing the drums on the first 4 albums, which is what I do like the best from this band, those first 4, but there is a lot of good stuff mixed in after that. But those first four are incredible. Just the drumming, as I said, from Jorg is amazing. The guitar playing is incredible. There's like good classic progressive. Kind of reminds me of the band Anacrusis a little bit, the American band, but Mekong Delta, great. The self-titled album from 87 it came out. The music of Eric Zahn is freaking fantastic from 88. Dances of Death, I think, is really cool. That was the last one with Jorg on the drums, but as I said, awesome band, a lot of good stuff. Mekong Delta, number 3. Next up at number 2, I'm going to go with Paradox, a band that I freaking love. They've released 7 full-length studio albums. All of them are good, I'll just say right now. But Paradox from 1990 is one of my favorite thrash albums of all time. And I'm not just saying that here, because you can go back to my top 50 thrash albums of all time list from months ago. Had that one at like 18, 19, somewhere in that range. So I think it's an incredible album. The musicianship is freaking top tier, pretty progressive, but very heavy at the same time. Good vocals. The guy's name is Charlie Steinhauer on vocals and rhythm guitar. He's their only constant member from the beginning, but really good musician. And then up through even like Tales of the Weird from 2012, I did rank as my second favorite modern album by a classic thrash band in a video I did a couple weeks ago. But 7 great freaking albums here. They do have an upcoming album next month called Heresy 2, End of a Legend. So I'm looking forward to that a lot because sounds like it's a sequel to the album Heresy, which is one of my favorite thrash albums ever. So gonna be looking for that. They've released 2 singles so far, and they're both great. But amazing band, super freaking criminally underrated. Go check them out, Paradox. All their stuff is amazing. But looking at some of these honorable mentions real quick before I get to number 1. Let's see here. I had Assorted Heap, which is a band that is really heavy. Pretty much like their first album is kind of like, it's got death metal elements to it, and then it's like thrashy, but pretty death metal-y too, and then the second album's a little bit more towards death metal, but I wanted to give them a mention because they're really cool. SDI, I think, is a great band. Exhumer, Headhunter, Angel Dust, Erosion is a really cool, underrated one. Iron Angel, Assassin, Disaster, and Violent Force is what I wrote down, but there's some other good ones, but man, friggin' that's 20 that I've gone through here that are all really good. Germany, just a freaking powerhouse of thrash. And on to my number 1 here. And taking the number 1 spot for me has got to be Holy Moses. I've been expressing my love for this band on the channel here for a very long time, so you guys might have seen this one coming, but, you know, love them. They were my number 1 overall German band in that video I did a while back, so a lot of good stuff with them. 12 full lengths. I love 11 of them. Their debut, 86, Queen of Siam, is incredible, and that, I've mentioned this before. The singer, Sabina Klassen, I love. She was pretty much the first girl to be singing in that super aggressive, like, guttural style, which is really cool. Reborn Dogs from 92, one of my favorites. And then this one here, The New Machine of Liechtenstein from 89, my very favorite album from them. Just a freaking thrash masterpiece. One of my all-time favorite thrash albums. Had it in my top 10, and just technical. The guitar work from Andy Klassen is amazing. Uli Kusch does the drumming on it, who later went on to be in like Halloween and Gamma Ray and all these other bands, but amazing drumming. Sabina sounds amazing on the vocals, and she's held up really well over the years. Her voice still sounds awesome on like Strength, Power, Will, Passion, which I have a patch for, from 2005 is great. The album from 08, Agony of Death, is really good. Has a cool like kind of apocalyptic atmosphere to it, which is a really cool feel. And Redefined Mayhem is their most recent album from 2014, which is really great as well. Just heavy, aggressive thrash. And then there is the more technical stuff, like on New Machine of Liechtenstein. But a lot of the time, like Reborn Dogs and some of their more recent stuff, super heavy and aggressive. So, yeah, just amazing band. Love them. They are my number 1 here. And that wraps up the list. So, I want to know your favorites. Let me know what you thought. You know, your 10 favorite non-Teutonic 4 Thrash bands. So a lot of good stuff to choose from. And yeah, as usual, thank you guys for watching. Until next time.